All right, now we arrive at the session that I've been most afraid of. And you'll see in a few minutes why I'm afraid of it a little bit. It's going to undo a bunch of Western Christianity, I feel. And depending on where you're sitting at, that can be really scary. We've talked about apostles, prophets, teachers, evangelists, pastors. Now we're going to talk about elders. And this is not going to be what you think, I don't think. When people hear the word elder, they picture something like a church board. A group of decision makers who vote on budgets and policies. But there's a problem. When you read the New Testament, elders are not corporate board members in the New Testament. They're shepherds. Mature believers entrusted with caring for the people of God. Acts 14:23 tells me Paul and Barnabas also appointed elders in every church. Notice what they appointed. Not committees. Committees are man-made. Not boards. Boards are man-made. They appointed elders. Mature spiritual leaders who could guide the church. So the question at hand in this lesson, out the gate, is what is an elder? The word elder refers to someone who is spiritually mature. Someone who has walked with God long enough to help other people walk with Him. But the New Testament actually uses 3 words to describe this role. You ready? Number 1, elder describes maturity. Overseer describes responsibility. Shepherd or pastor describes how they care for the people. So 1 Peter 5:1-2, and now a word to you who are elders. Care for the flock that God has entrusted to you. Watch over it willingly. Who's Peter talking to? He tells these people to shepherd the flock. And then he tells them to watch over it. That's 3 descriptions in one role. So an elder is a mature believer who shepherds God's people and oversees their spiritual care. So an elder is just another description for pastor. Which means there were no pastor and elder structures in the early church. That's all man-made stuff. So how did modern church structures develop then? Here's where things get confusing. Most churches have a senior pastor, okay? A board of deacons or elders. Those two are not even supposed to be interchangeable, but they are in today's society. In the early church, an elder was a pastor and a deacon was the servant leader. In today's vernacular, you got a senior pastor, a board or elders or deacons, sometimes a governing board. But the New Testament doesn't actually describe any corporate structure. That developed later in church history for practical reasons, and we'll talk about that. As churches grew larger and legal systems developed, many churches adopted organizational models similar to businesses. In many places, elder boards began functioning more like board of directors, which was never biblical and never of God. Now, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily wrong altogether. It just means that the structure has developed over time. But when you go back to the apostles' doctrine, and people all say all the time, I want to be part of the Acts church. Do you? Because if you're going to go all the way back to the Acts church, the emphasis is always the same. Spiritual leaders who shepherd the people of God. So let's look at the heart of elder leadership. Acts 20:28, guard yourselves and God's people. Feed and shepherd God's flock, his church purchased with his own blood. Paul spoke these words to the elders in Ephesus. Feed the flock, shepherd the flock, guard the flock. That language reflects the heart of Jesus. John 10:11 says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for the sheep. So elders then reflect that same shepherd's heart. They care for the spiritual health of the church. Biblical leadership is not about control, it's about example. And what really is disheartening to me is when I got to studying this, I don't know about you, but I've had controlling elders before in my pastorate. And they just happen to be board members at the same time, which I don't think should happen. An elder that's a board member is Adolf Hitler waiting to happen. Because they know they can be voted in and that gives them power. And a pastor that's the number one board member is another dictatorship waiting to happen. So I think that the best model, in my opinion now, I'm not saying that I wouldn't serve with boards and elders. Of course I would. They vote for 99% of the pastorates. And there's some really good ones out there, by the way. But my ideal structure, if I were to plant from the ground up, is that you pick pastors outside of your church to be the board, and the elders would come in from the inside. That's just my personal opinion. Now, is the structure that I'm talking about corrupt altogether? No, it depends on the person. Great people can be pastors and elders and work together. 1 Peter 5:3 says, don't lord it over the people assigned to your care, but lead them by your own good example. So elders lead through their lives. People follow them because they see authentic faith, not control, okay? And that goes for pastors and elders. Their authority flows from their relationship with God. What are the qualifications for elders and pastors? Once we understand what elders are and what they do, the next question becomes, what kind of people should they be? Well, Paul gives this example. 1 Timothy 3:2-3, a church leader must be a man whose life is above reproach. He must exercise self-control, live wisely, and have a good reputation. Notice what Scripture emphasizes here, not charisma, not personality, not influence. What does it emphasize? Character. God is looking for mature believers whose life reflect Christ. 1 Timothy 3:4-5 says he must manage his own family well. For if a man cannot manage his own household, how can he take care of God's church? The church is a family. So the leaders of the church must demonstrate the ability to love and guide their own family first. Spiritual maturity matters. 1 Timothy 3:6. A church leader must not be a new believer. I would never let a new believer be a church leader. Leadership takes maturity. It takes time walking with God. The early church looked for people whose lives had already been proven faithful. So the New Testament picture of leadership is simple. God's not looking for impressive leaders. He's looking for mature shepherds. People who love the flock. People who walk closely with God. People who reflect the character of Christ. And when leadership looks like that, the church becomes what God intended. So here's the deal. Even though I understand that because of legalities, we can't function like we did in the original church on everything. I wish we could. I understand that because of that, you got board members that are elders, even though, to be honest with you, bishop, elder, overseer, pastor, they're all the same office. They were never meant to be separate offices. But all the same, there's nothing wrong with going and obeying the law of the land and having a pastor and elders. But the goal here is that we all live godly and not try to control each other. It shouldn't be about political power. And that's my goal of what I'm trying to say. So, if the right pastorate comes around, I don't mind working with a board or elders. It's biblical to obey the laws of the land. I just hope that them and myself can work together so that Christ is perfected in that congregation, in that particular scenario. So I hope that this has helped everybody. God bless you.